to the millers. Despite the undertaking to submit documentation on the same, none has been received by the committee as at the point of writing the report. The amount of money owed to Zero Millers Association submitted to the committee was different from the amount of money that they were demanding from the ministry. The ministry, from the ministry to pay, as seen from the letters that were attached to their presentations. CMA explained that the figures submitted to the committee had gone up because 2 other millers joined the program later. They, however, did not submit details of the 2 millers. The fifth issue that we established was that during the consideration of the supplementary estimate number 1 of the financial year 2022-23, the committee established that the total amount spent on the maize flour subsidy program was 7,267 million. However, CMA informed the committee that the total amount for the program was 6.6 billion, while the GMOA, or the Grain Millers Organization, Owners Association, stated that the total amount for the program was 6.4 billion. So the 3 figures were different again. There was discrepancy in the amount submitted to the ministry in the ministry's submission and that presented during the supplementary estimate number 1 of the financial year 2022-23. The ministry explained that the figures amounting to 3.267 billion submitted to the during the supplementary estimates had been arrived at before reconciliations were done. The figures were mainly because of repeated invoices. Therefore, the new figure is 3.025 billion, which is outstanding. As such, there were a number of issues that need to be interrogated on the part of the Zero Millers Association, like the details of the millers that were paid 500 million on the account of interest accrued on the maize flour subsidy for the financial year 2017-2018, and how the money was paid to them. The second issue is the total amount of money owed to the CMA, which was also staggering, which was changing. And then the third issue is the members of the CMA that supplying the maize flour to the subsidy program. The committee will conduct further investigations to table a report with recommendations on the way forward in view of those issues. So the committee therefore makes the following recommendations on our speaker. From the above observation, the committee does recommend that an amount of about 500 million owed to the members of the Grain Mill Owners Association should be factored in the budgetary estimates for the financial year 2023-2024 and paid because their computations were clear, the membership of the associations that participated in the program were static, and they did not participate in the maize flour subsidy of 2017-2018, which are the issues. The other issue is that, the other conclusion is that a total amount of 841,784,292.89 that was paid to GMOA, or the Grain Mill Owners Association, under the Article 223 of the Constitution be regularized because the committee established that there was value for money on the association's part. And the final issue is that the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development should come up with a policy on how to engage in future subsidy programs within 3 months of adoption of this report, and submit a copy of the same to the committee. Honourable Speaker, I would wish to acknowledge the following in view of their participation in this report. I would like to acknowledge the committee. We are grateful as a committee to the Speaker of the National Assembly and the clerk for the logistical and technical support accorded during our sittings. The committee further wishes to thank the Zero Millers Association, the Grain Mill Owners Association, to limit the scope of the bill. Allow me to repeat that. The committee further wishes to thank Zero Millers Association, Grain Mill Owners Association, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, Office of the Attorney General, and the National Treasury and Economic Planning for making this inquiry successful. Finally, I wish to express my appreciation to the members of the committee and the committee secretariat who made useful contributions towards production and preparation of this report. Honourable Speaker, I wish to call upon the Honourable Member for Soy, the Honourable David Kiplagat, MP for Soy, and also a member of the committee to second this report, adoption of the report. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I wish to second the motion on the maize subsidy and to state to the House that we did the inquiry. We invited all the stakeholders that were involved in the subsidy. As you know, the maize subsidy was a hot issue just before the elections and after the elections. And this government is now focused on production subsidy rather than consumer subsidy. On the inquiry, we found out that there were a lot of challenges that actually will result in questioning whether there was value for money for this subsidy. But further inquiry revealed that the small millers who actually supplied maize, the maize flour, did not know the entire architecture, unlike the large-scale millers. So they were just brought in at the 11th hour, and actually they spent their money in supplying the maize for the subsidy. And looking at the current financial situations for the small millers is they are in dire situation in that they have taken bank loans because the government could not be able to pay them for a long time. That's why the committee came to a conclusion that the small-scale millers were very genuine and they are currently suffering, and we urge this House to approve this report so that that segment of millers who are struggling like any other Kenyan can be paid to a tune of 500 million, the one that is still due to them, so that the ministry doesn't take more time to alleviate their suffering. So we call upon this House to look at the report, to debate the report, and come to the conclusion that the committee came to, that the small-scale millers need to be paid their dues. Now, looking at the big fish are the large-scale millers. They are the ones that sat with the big bosses. They designed the program, and they executed. And you can imagine the design of the program whereby you have the floor subsidy going for 100 shillings. That's a drop all the way from 200 and 230 then. But there is no label to indicate that this bag is from the maize subsidy. It doesn't have the GOK label. It doesn't have the subsidized label. And what we found out is that the brokers in between and the cartels that are all over in this country managed to benefit, and they might have used now that maize flour. They go and created artificial shortage. And I know most of the members, given that you are also interacting with the public, getting the maize flour then was not a very easy thing, because it disappeared in our shelves. Because these cartels, they were able to take the maize, they store them in their stores, and when the subsidy was stopped suddenly, what happened is now the maize flooded the market, but the millers could not be able to sell the maize because there were a lot of them at the stores of the cartels. So that is why we feel that there needs to be more investigation on what happened to this program, especially. What is out of order?
I would advise that points of order, order members. Points of order nowadays are done through intervention, not through howling at your seat. Yeah. So if I say intervention here, I will be able to then know whether...
Okay. May I proceed?
Whether...
May I proceed? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
What I'm saying...
Order. The Honorable Ruku, what is out of order?
Mr. Speaker, this is a House of Records, and we were sworn in to oversight on the behalf of Kenyans. And this committee is extremely important committee, and if the member who is seconding, he has talked about cartels.
Honorable Ruku, I want you to go
Is he in order to talk about the cartels without mentioning the names so that the people of the Republic of Kenya can be able to understand who are these cartels who have been causing trouble when it comes to the issues of unga. The issues of unga is an extremely pertinent issue, Mr. Speaker. It's an issue which we cannot. It's an issue, actually it's a security.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I am on record.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for coming to my rescue. I think, Honorable Rugu, unless you are not living in Kenya, you know we have cartels in this country, so we don't need to elaborate. But since I cannot substantiate on that, then maybe for the record, I withdraw that statement on the cartels, but kindly know that there are cartels in this country. So may I proceed? Okay, from our report, our report is very clear that for now, the small-scale millers, as we have stated, they were not in the design and the architecture of this program. They were brought in the 11th hour. They were just told to mill maize, and given that they were within our estates and living within the population, they milled the maize, and when they took their product outside, the population took them, and they were able to sell to those who are available within those precincts. But the design of the project of the maize subsidy was that the large-scale millers, there was a whole chain from the cereals, from the provincial administration, from the security apparatus. All those were supposed to guard that food chain to ensure that it reached the distributors, it reached the wholesalers, and also it reached the retailers. But for the small scale millers, we are urging this House kindly consider the report and alleviate the suffering that these small millers have been going through, so that their money can be released without further delay. As I finish, there is need for this House to look at Article 223 that the current Treasury are using to approve expenditures that are not within our budget. And looking at those expenditures, some of them might not be emergency expenditures. So I'm calling upon this House, let us also relook at that article and to put caution so that it can only be used when the need arises. Especially, we have noted that as we head towards the election period, there is misuse of Article 223 for government to spend money that has not been voted by this House. So we also call upon, that's what we discovered when we are doing the inquiry, that there is need to guard on the utilization of Article 223 by the Treasury officials. Otherwise, I second and I call this House to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable David Kiplagat. Before I propose the motion for debate, I wish to recognize the pupils from the following schools: Komotobo Secondary School, Kuria East in Migori County; Kinungi Primary School, Naivasha, from Naivasha in Nakuru County; and Kakenya Center of Excellence from Kilgoris in Narok County; Ntepes Primary School from Samburu East in Samburu County; students from Eburu Secondary School, Gilgil, Nakuru County, and students from Teresia Schools in Gilgil, Nakuru County. They are all welcome to follow the proceedings of the House this afternoon, and we welcome them warmly. Honorable members, I therefore proceed to propose the motion that this House adopt the report of the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock on its inquiry into the maize flour subsidy program for the financial year 2022-2023, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 7th June 2023. The Honorable Robert Mbui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, as we debate this motion, it's important to remember the purpose behind the introduction of that maize subsidy, because that seems sometimes to be getting lost in the discussions. That because of prolonged droughts last year, towards the end of the year, the government of the day noted that the prices of unga were rising all the way beyond 200 shillings per 2 kilogram packet. And so the government made a decision, which in my opinion was a very, very decent decision to support the Kenyan public by subsidizing that product, so that the prices were actually targeted to go down to 100 shillings. So the idea was a noble idea. The idea was a brilliant idea, and I think the government was showing that it has a heart, and the government cares for the people of the country. So, Mr. Speaker, the first thing we need to clear is that the idea was good. But, Mr. Speaker, what has happened is that despite a brilliant idea, there is so much agony. There is agony to the people that supplied these maize. In fact, Mr. Speaker, Section 43 of the committee report indicates to us that some of the millers are saying, due to the non-payment, they are suffering, facing closure due to the debt burden. Some of them have lost jobs. There is operational losses. There are broken families, Mr. Speaker, broken families as a result of non-payment. And then, of course, finally, they say that they have reduced faith in government, Mr. Speaker, because they did a deal, a contract with government, and were not paid. And you know, Mr. Speaker, we must make it very clear that government exists in perpetuity. Government does not exist because somebody is in the office of the president. The office of the president can change hands. The leadership of the country in terms of political parties can change hands, but government exists in perpetuity. And these people that supplied had the right to be paid. And I'm happy that finally the committee is also seeing some sense in some of them being paid, although there's still a lot of opaqueness within the whole deal. Mr. Speaker, I sympathize with the committee because the committee actually was trying to squeeze, I think, water out of a rock. Because, Mr. Speaker, they have conflicting details from every organization that came to them. The Ministry of Agriculture, the Cereal Millers Association, the Grain Millers Grain Mill Owners Association, and all of them were giving different figures. And Mr. Speaker, that tells me that there is a problem. It makes me smell a rat in the whole of this deal. Because, Mr. Speaker, Article 10 of the Constitution is very clear about the issue on values and principles of good governance. One of the most important tenets is the issue of transparency and accountability, Mr. Speaker, and also public participation and involvement of the public. Mr. Speaker, there is too much opaqueness in this whole deal that I feel that there are people who are trying to hide information so that they could gain. Mr. Speaker, this matter is a straightforward matter. I mean, Mr. Speaker, look at it this way. The Ministry of Agriculture decided that they will procure maize flour for purposes of bringing down the price. Mr. Speaker, all they needed to tell us is who did they contract, how much was supplied, what was the supply price, what was paid or who was paid, and who has not been paid. But when we come here, it is, CMA are giving a figure, GMOA are giving a figure, the ministry is sometimes almost acting fluid, AFA is also not giving their own figures. Mr. Speaker, it is so unfortunate. And so that tells me that there must be some greed and some corruption that took place within this deal. That clearly must be what has happened, Mr. Speaker, because when you find that there is opaqueness in the information that is being shared, it means somebody somewhere was benefiting and they did not want that to come out. But, Mr. Speaker, it was surprising that the Grain Miller Owners Association, they are saying that when they were supplying, they did not supply to the value chain, so it didn't even end up in the shops. In fact, it is so shocking because I've seen Section 55 says that they were supplying their neighbors. Who are their neighbors? And how was that being accountable? Mr. Speaker, this thing is so unfortunate, but I want to say that the idea was brilliant. If we ever go back to doing some subsidy program, we must think through from the beginning till the end so that we can have some efficiency.
No, I'll allow Honorable Mbui 1 more minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I was saying it's important that as we are dealing with these things, let us find a way that we can slay this dragon called corruption. Mr. Speaker, I think that's basically the bottom line in the whole of this arrangement. Let us deal with corruption. Let us have an effective government dealing with corruption. Let us have an executive that cares for the people so that Kenya can move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
In listening to the chairman of the committee and the second of the motion, you see or you hear undertones of something wrong done, but you don't see it in the recommendations. This chance goes to the Honorable Indikiri Mugambi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was waiting for this report like any other member of parliament, but an issue congratulatory note goes to the chairman of the committee for taking a bold step to start an inquiry. Because this issue of subsidy has been used by both political divines. We were looking for explanations about the subsidy because we are told that the unga prices will go down to 100, and we are waiting for it, but we never saw it. When we joined the government, we said we will bring the prices for unga down, which we are doing. But the time has come that we say we call a spade a spade. This is not about the Kenya Kwanza government, it's about Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, the idea which the leader of minority, the whip, is purporting to be was a good idea, to me I see it as a business decision of an organized criminal element of people who sat together and found out the best way of lying to Kenyan is propagating for introduction of the subsidy. If there is a case study of PhD, is that. And it's very unfortunate that people criticizing the government for corruption, insensitivity, are the same people who perpetuated this program. Very unfortunate it did. We all know. I will agree there's some data which is missing from this report. But what the committee has done is they looked at the good suppliers and millers, and they focused on that. And that's what they are saying we approve. One of the things that the chairman should do is now to give us the list of those good millers to accompany as a detail for the 500 million that they have said we need to pay to those millers. And Mr. Speaker, once that one is done, we'll ask the committee to go back and give us the list of those bad millers they have identified, and so that we can see whether we can blacklist them. I am not going to agree to the fact that some of these millers failed. They stopped manufacturing. Now they are suffering. When they were eating Kenyan money, they were enjoying. This is their time. This is their time to pay back. This is their time to be named. This is their time to be blacklisted. They have to take the consequences. And we should not shy away from that. This government is doing whatever it can do to make sure there is food on the table, fertilizer, etc. Now making sure that the prices of meals have gone down. Those people who conspired with the then government must be brought to book, must be exposed, so that we don't see them with their good labels of so and so manufacturers, but they are the same guys who ate and consumed Kenyan money and produced nothing to go to reducing the cost of unga. Mr. Speaker, we cannot politicize this. And I ask my very good friend, I respect very much, he's my senior. I actually have taken him as my mentor, though directly, because there are certain things that I like, others I don't like. What we are saying is, every time we stand, we should not speak negativity of this government, which has been in power for 8 months. So I agree that there is a deficiency in that report, and the chairman and the committee can give us another report, that which will include what is omitted on this. The list of the manufacturers who are not being paid, the reason why they are not being paid.
Member for Chesumei. Zonde Buruku, I would request that you be patient and wait for your turn. Yeah. Member for Siaya. Member for Siaya. Do you want to speak on this?
Thank you for this opportunity. Much as I would have loved to participate in another, contribute to another bill, but I still want to say that the issue of maize is still going on, and it is a big issue. It has never been resolved, but I think that the smaller millers, who's owned by, by the government, over 500 million, should be settled. These are young millers who are struggling, and they're badly off, much as they really want to get involved in agriculture and ensure that they also make their own money, and also to support the country in terms of food security. I think they should be paid, and I will support that. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Member for Seme.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to discuss this report with a very heavy heart. So, Speaker, a very heavy heart that I cannot support this report. Mr. Speaker, because it is basically on sympathy that the small millers are suffering. But it does not give you the whole context. You get the impression that much more serious things have happened, but you don't see it in the report. We start by saying that these millers supplied the flour to the wholesalers, and it was not their responsibility to know what happened thereafter. Mr. Speaker, it goes on to say that these millers supplied the flour to neighboring families, and they do not know who these neighboring families are. So, Speaker, the report then goes to say there was a multi-agency team comprising of various government agencies that was put in place to oversee the program at all stages. You do not even get to know how this multi-agency was linking with these small millers that we are sympathizing with. it then leaves you that it then tells you that the shifted maize meal was not stamped subsidy, and therefore it gives you the impression that it went into the market and was probably just sold as any other maize meal. What it leaves you with, Mr. Speaker, is that we are paying people the maize that was supposed to be bought by Kenyans were bought at the expensive prices, but we are now paying because they should have bought them at lower prices. They did not. So what is our rationale? I think that this report came out prematurely. It should have come with clear details of who did what. I don't want to help some people without knowing who I should punish. I would first of all want to know who to punish for this sin. Then I say, okay, these guys suffered because of these people. But we are left by saying the small millers, I presume this is the grain millers, the Grain Mill Owners Association. And I'm also assuming that the cereal millers association are probably the big ones, because that is what is coming out of the report. So, Mr. Speaker, this report was in the right way, but I think we need to know exactly what happened before we make this payment. This is my view. I know it's painful for me because I'm told that these people are suffering. True, they are suffering. But I'm also very worried that if I'm in a business and there was a lot of issue at this time and I'm milling maize, I'm taking it out. I also live in the same area. I don't go there to see whether anybody is buying the maize I milled at the price I was supposed to mill it at. I can't say I completely didn't know what was happening. So, Mr. Speaker, this report, we need a more detailed report. If it can come quickly so that we really help these small millers that we are saying are suffering, while we know exactly. That's word of cartels. Let's have it and know who these cartels are. These multi-agency teams, let's know who they are and put them to task as we pay these people. But we can't just do a quick job and pay these people without knowing. My fear is that if we do that, there is no more heat, the matter goes. So me, Mr. Speaker, with a very, very heavy heart, I do not support this report. I oppose it.
Thank you. I can't see, I'm trying to follow the list and the members I can't see. The Honorable Cecilia Ngitit of Turkana. I thought I saw her. Remember, the Honorable Irene Mayaka? The Honorable Ruku?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this report is done by a member, the chairman. It's a member of our coalition, the Kenya Kwanza Coalition. And Mr. Speaker, I would be very happy to support the report. But Mr. Speaker, I rise to oppose this report. And I want to oppose it with very strong terms, possible. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have a very cardinal responsibility given by the people of Kenya to tell them the truth, but only the truth. And when I listened to the presentation done by the chairman and seconded by a member of the committee, Mr. Speaker, there is too much left out, or even there is more than meet the eye. Mr. Speaker, every departmental committee of this House has the powers, judicial powers, to call anybody and to ask for any evidence possible, so that that evidence can be read, can be tabled in this House, so that the Kenyans can be able to know what is exactly happening within the public sector. The matters UNGA, Mr. Speaker, touches the core of the even security of this nation. We have seen very violent demonstrations done because of the hunger, not only in this country, but also in other nations in the world. So these are very important matters of the nation which should be investigated by the departmental committee without fear or favor of anything, Mr. Speaker. We cannot rush to conclude that we authorize payment of 1.3 billion Kenyan shilling without us being told, without Kenyans being told, how the entire program of subsidy started, what the companies which were involved, what are the names of those companies, what are the directors of those companies, for how long they have been in operation, and how much the subsidy. If the second of the motion of these reports has talked about cartels, Mr. Speaker, the Departmental Committee of Agriculture has a responsibility bestowed to that committee by the people of Kenya to unearth who are these cartels who are running away with the subsidy money, which is supposed to take care of the poor of this nation. I have not heard anything like that in this report. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I beseech all the members of this House to find the reason to reject this report, to oppose this report. The Committee of Agriculture should go back. And I know the leadership of the committee is an able man. He's an extremely well-educated man who can be able to go to the core of this matter so that we can have a proper report, a report of even 500 pages if need be, so that the truth about the subsidy program can be known. We cannot give Kenyans half-truth. We cannot give Kenyans Sunday work. We have to tell the Kenyans the truth, Mr. Speaker. And if there are people who are culpable, they should face full force of the authority of this House. Because this House is powerful, it has authority, and anybody who did wrong as far as subsidy program is concerned, that person, that company, should be in a position to face full force of the authority of this House. Mr. Speaker, I beg to oppose this report in totality the way it has been presented in this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The member for Busia. Want to speak on this?
Mr. Speaker, I'm preparing to speak in the next one because we have a report.
The Honorable Sunkuli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to support this report. Mr. Speaker, the maize subsidies actually began much earlier than the very last one that was done, which I think is the subject matter of this report. Originally, the government had wanted to fix the prices of unga at 90 shillings per 2 kg. And at that time, the government imported maize, and the National Cereals and Produce Board sold the maize at 2,300 shillings per 90 kgs. And at that time, the millers were allowed to buy maize at a cheaper price on condition that they sold the maize, the unga, at 90 shillings per 2 kg. Now, at that time, Mr. Speaker, the one thing that the millers were required to do was to write the price of unga on the packet, say 90 kg. And that was complied on to. The unga was sold very nicely and shillings, 120, and continued escalating. Towards the last election, the prices of unga started going very high. And in order to bring down the prices, the government implemented a subsidy program. And that subsidy program was given to a few millers. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, these millers were not required to write on the packets the amount of money that they were going to sell, the price of the unga. So the subsidy was given, the unga was lowered in terms of its price, and it went on like that, and the millers had to sign a contract, and they signed an undertaking that they were going to do that, and the government signed an undertaking to pay them. I admit, Mr. Speaker, that there were some respects in which this subsidy was not well conducted, because it was not easy to identify in the market which unga was subsidized and which one was not. But subsidized unga was sold. Now the problem is we have a new government. And the new government is a successor of that government. In fact, a huge component of this government was the former government. Now here in our hands, we have an issue. Should the new government or abrogate the contracts that were made by the other government just because it was not well implemented? The report has pointed out the errors of that day. But the report has also said that the obligations must be met, and that we as a House must factor in the budget the payment of these subsidies. And I see myself that we really have no choice. The Committee of Agriculture, in its wisdom, has seen that we have no choice. Mr. Speaker, let the government pay the subsidies because the government undertook to pay the subsidies. In future, they should do what they did originally. They should state the price of unga before, and they should make the subsidized unga identifiable in the market. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, this report is good. I support it, and I therefore rest my case now.
Member for Suba South.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Let me start by saying any subsidy program for unga in this country since independence has always been a scandal. Starting with the famous Paul Ngei experience. Even up to the time.
Mutunga, you seem to be.
I hope they have paused my time.
Go ahead. Seems you don't have the mic. Go ahead, Honorable.
Okay. We've always experienced a national scandal every time we speak of maize importation to subsidize unga in this country. Right from independence, if you remember the saga that involved the late freedom fighter Paul Ngei. Up to the time when I was also chief of staff, I was accused of being engaged in some malfeasance with imported maize. So I took a lot of time to try and understand how this thing works. Mr. Speaker, it is, I think, a short-term measure that is open to abuse to imagine that the government can control price of unga by simply importing maize and giving it to millers to mill and sell. What normally happens is that the procurement processes ever since are never transparent. And there's a curious timing. Maize is always imported either after elections or towards elections. Throughout, if you see all the instances when we've been importing maize. Now, what happens is when you import the maize, and normally it is through National Cereals and Produce Board, and hopefully you give it to maize millers to mill it, the story on importation is normally very clear. It is imported at a certain fixed price, then given to NCPP. But the millers never access it to NCPP at that price because there are intermediaries in between who buy it from NCPP and sell it eventually to the millers. That is where the corruption starts. And Mr. Speaker, why do we want to regulate the price of unga? It's either because the market forces of supply and demand have collapsed and there's not enough maize in the market. I don't think that is an issue that should be addressed by subsidizing the price of unga. It should be addressed by other means so that the prices can be maintained. In my view, the long-term solution to this problem is having what we call strategic grain reserve that should be kept at all times by the government, which is then released to the market whenever there's a shortage, instead of rushing to import maize. And then I think we should also continue developing and deepening the operations of our commodities market to try and create stability in prices of this essential commodity. Now, turning to this report, Mr. Speaker, I would like to oppose it because I don't think it goes deep enough and I don't think it deals with what the key issue is. What worries me most when I read this report is I can clearly see that there was no financial tracing, what we call follow the money. There's not been any attempt to follow the money. If we want to unearth this scandal, the 4 billion that was paid, let us be told when it left IFMIS, it went to A, B, C, D, and let us get the names of those people. The same way, we should also get the full list of the so-called small-scale suppliers of unga, whom we are recommending should be paid 500 million. There is no list. Without knowing who the beneficiaries are, we surely cannot go and interrogate what the underlying contracts are. And either we follow the money or do what is called financial tracing and get to the bottom of this matter. Otherwise, it is so clear that the 4 billion, because we never saw this, we were all in this country, we never saw this cheap unga. Yeah? We don't know where it was, but somebody was paid. So I think the committee should go back and do a forensic audit, or if you don't have the capacity, do what we did during the Grand Coalition. Call PwC or Deloitte and Touche as we did. Let them do the financial tracing for you on the payments of 4 billion that were made. Let them tell us who received the money. Let us go and audit their books, their industrial production records, and see whether they produced this maize and sold it in the market. And we will get to the bottom of it. So, Mr. Speaker, I oppose. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Member for Mosop. Honorable Mutunga, you will have a chance during your reply. That's my determination on this matter. You will have a chance to reply to all this. So the best thing to do is to take notes. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity that you've given me to comment on this particular motion. I stand here to support this particular report of the committee on this issue of subsidizing the maize millers. Mr. Speaker, the committee took a very long time to investigate on this matter. They sat down, they were able to actually reach out to the parties that were actually involved on this particular matter of subsidy. And after a lengthy report and also doing their own investigation, Mr. Speaker, it is very evident that, of course, there were deficiencies on this particular issue of subsidy. The contracts that was issued by the ministry was totally different from the contracts, of course, that was signed by the small-scale millers. But that should not be an excuse as to why they should not be paid for providing subsidized maize. So, Mr. Speaker, after reading this report carefully, I've taken quite a bit of time to read through the report of the committee. And I saw the time that they took until they talked to Treasury, they talked to all the stakeholders, and based on this, the multi-agency team comprising of various government agencies were put into place to oversee the program in all the stages. And it says, however, the team did not provide a report on areas of coverage of the subsidy maize flour. Obviously, if the government agencies, multi-agencies were involved in overseeing the program, then they may have failed, but some way, somehow, the maize was distributed to individuals. Some people bought it. There are some areas that says they sold it to small neighborhoods. They may not have used the regular distribution chains, but that is not a reason not to pay the people who supplied the maize. The amount of money owed to CMA submitted to the committee was different from the amount of money that they were demanding the ministry to pay, as seen from the letter that was attached to the, by the presentation. So the committee took their time. They were able to really be very careful in what they were saying and what they were doing, and I believe this report, Mr. Speaker, that has been brought to us is very genuine, and I support that they should be paid, because nobody should be able to have given their maize, and then at the end of the day, the government says they were not responsible or they are not going to pay. So the 500 million owed to the members of the Grain Millers Association should be factored into the budget estimate of the financial year 23-24. I do support, and I believe this is a genuine and credible report, and I stand here, Mr. Speaker, to support the report of the committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Kabondo Kasipul.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, there is nothing wrong the world over in giving subsidies. And we have seen countries like the US, the UK, and several others in the developed world giving subsidies to their citizens. Mr. Speaker, from what we had seen, the intentions, the subsidy was given as a measure to cushion the citizens to affordable levels of buying maize flour. And maize, we all know, is the staple diet of the Kenyan people. Mr. Speaker, it appears from the report that some people may have taken advantage to make money out of this subsidy. Mr. Speaker, as I support the report, with a rider that an audit be carried out with full disclosure on who did what. Mr. Speaker, as it is, the report is inconclusive, and I urge the committee to just put in a little bit of meat, just a little bit more, and we finalize on this matter. Those who genuinely supplied should not be victimized. They should be paid for the services that they rendered. Thank you very much. Once again, I support, but with a rider of an audit on full disclosure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Member for Turkana East.
Honorable Speaker, I arise to read the motion of adjournment.
Order, member. I thought the chance was to you to contribute on the motion. So what do you want to do? The motion for adjournment is for 5:30, not now yet. This chance goes to Honorable Ngeleche.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise under Article 95 of the Standing Orders. Wish to call the mover to reply. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
There is a motion on the floor. that the MOA will be called upon to reply. And that decision has been made by the membership. I therefore put the question that the MOA will be called upon to reply. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Mover.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I beg to have 6 minutes. And in those 6 minutes, I beg to give my colleagues on the other side 1.5 minutes each, 2 of them. Then I'll reply. Honourable Speaker.
Go ahead.
I wish to donate 1 minute to each of those ladies because they have been striving to...
The Honorable Mutumbe, you are in order, but these are also rules and regulations.
Okay.
On this particular matter, I'd already given a chance to the member for Busia, which she forwent. I already called out the member, the Honorable Mayaka. She wasn't in the house. So maybe the person who would be in order to contribute would be the Honorable Fatuma. Yeah. And members, before she does that, it's just good to be out of courtesy to explain that fact, that when you put your card and request to speak, and for example, you forgo your chance, like what Honorable Member Hobusia did, it's already indicated that you've contributed in the motion. And our regulations don't allow you to contribute to a motion twice. That's why I'm not able to allow the Member Hobusia to contribute again on this matter. Honorable Fatuma, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity. I would like to support the motion. Mr. Speaker, the Kenyans who ate that maize, that the price was reduced courtesy of the subsidy, had a good benefit out of it. We saved them from death because hunger brings death. I think it would be unfair to punish the farmers for giving us maize at a reduced price we refuse to pay now. I think it would not be fair to play politics with this. We do understand that the subsidy was a product of the past regime. But when something is good, do not just deny an opportunity for that thing to show its goodness because a new government has come in place. So I request that kindly this government should honor what the previous government did. The former regime did a bad job according to them. So punishing our farmers is punishing poor Kenyans. The farmers are the people who feed us. If we don't pay them, it means that they will go broke. They go broke, they will not be able to continue with their business of doing farming. So I, in totality, support this motion, and I urge Kenyans to support it. They did an investigation on the small-scale farmers, and it was done on broad daylight. It was on television. We all watched it. And now it is unfortunate that we come here and say that we do not support what they said. We had an opportunity to raise this in the committee, even if you're not a member of Agriculture Committee, and you saw what was being showed on television was not right according to you. You had an opportunity to go to the committee and say, give out your views. I support this motion, and I request the government to respect what the former regime did. It was a good idea. In fact, I'm requesting the current regime to also bring a subsidy on maize so that Kenyans can have food. It is the reason why we went on the streets. We were saying we want unga. Please do what is good for Kenyans, and let's stop politics when it comes to Kenyans' health and life. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you so much. Honorable members, I wish to communicate that the reply to this motion will be done in the next sitting, and the request for the next order, which, as you members know, is supposed to start at 5:30, and it's a motion of adjournment by the Honorable Nicole. The Honorable Nicholas Nkolong, that is your chance now.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 33-1, I take lead for the adjournment of this House for the purpose of discussing definite matter of urgent national importance regarding insecurity in Turkana East constituency and the North Rift in general. Honorable Speaker, there have been recent cases of insecurity in Turkana East constituency, with the raids witnessed from the neighboring community leading to loss of lives and livestock. On Thursday, 27th of July this year, bandits attacked villagers at Lomelo Center, killing one person, injured another one, and stealing a known number of livestock. In addition, on Monday, 31st of July, 2023, 4 people, namely Mr. Eznyen Aletia from Moe, of ID number 32870974, the late Mr. Ingolan Ayton of ID number 24389833, and the late Etir Chaptai of ID number 2009-1399, and the late Lopem Akiyokori were killed by bandits believed to be from Tiate constituency. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I secondly for the adjournment of the House to discuss this matter of great national concern with a view of exploring possible and lasting solutions for sustaining peace in Turkana East and North Rift. Honorable Speaker, it is of this matter that it has come to my concern for this House to discuss over this issue of banditry in the North Rift, where Turkana is also affected because we hail from the North Rift. Mr. Speaker, life has no replacement. And as stand here today, the people I represent from Turkana East, they have suffered a lot. 38 people have lost life for the period of 8 months. That is from January to date. 21 people injured, and a good number of livestock being stolen by bandits, of which, Mr. Speaker, when we mention and say the community by name, calling by name for cause, sometimes we do say, let's not criminalize the community. But my question to the security agency is, if we are not supposed to criminalize the communities, from 1954, before I was born, to date, where are these criminals from these communities? Because we are supposed to be mentioning these communities by saying the Pokos or the Turkana or the Samburu, they have raided or they have killed people. We have been told, let's be specific with our information. Can these criminals be identified and brought to books of law? Because we cannot continue losing life. When we talk of 38 lives being lost within the period of 8 months, which an average of 5 people in a month, Mr. Speaker, if we give a period of 5 years, the period will be representing these people. How many people are we going to lose in Turkana East? Mr. Speaker, this issue of banditry in the North Rift must come to an end. And this country, or we as the leadership of this country, we need to wake up and tell Kenyans what is happening in the North Rift. Because we cannot continue through all these regimes. We have been talking about this issue. Imagine I'm talking of this issue starting sometimes back before I was born. Now I am the member of parliament now, speaking on this issue. Where are we heading to as a country? For how long will these people continue losing their life? Mr. Speaker, the Turkana people, the people I represent, they have a right to go to school. As I speak here, some students in my constituency, they have not gone to school since the start of this year. If I give an example of Napayton, Nadome, Kamuge, Lomelo, those kids, they have not gone to school just because of insecurity. And other Kenyans, they are just learning smoothly all over the country. And we are taking this issue as just a normal issue. Is it not our right, the right of those kids to go to school? Mr. Speaker, as Kenyans also, we have a right to travel. As I speak here, some roads in my constituency, they are not passable. Not because we have rainfall, not because there's something wrong, but because of banditry. The attackers, they are killing people, burning vehicles along those roads. The road from Lokori to Kapedo, it is impossible. Not because of anything else, but because of these attackers. The road from Lokori via Kamuge to Kapedo, it is impossible. Not because of anything, just because of these attackers. The road from Lokwamozing to Lochiakula, it is impossible. Not because of anything, but because of this menace of attacks. Mr. Speaker, we are also Kenyans, and we have a right to health. As I speak here, some health institutions in my constituency, they have been banned, some they have been destroyed, and people, they are not getting treatment just because those health facilities, they were banned by these bandits from the Pokot community. And by so doing, people are dying just because they are not getting treatment, because the health centers, they were banned. If I can give you an example, the health center at Napayton Center, it was banned on 1st of August last year, before we went to election, where we lost about 19 people. They were burned alive. Mr. Speaker, we have a right also to live. As I speak here, I have said we have lost 38 people. These are Kenyans who are supposed to live, but they have denied by these people, they have denied them their right to live. Mr. Speaker, as also Kenyans, we have a right to be represented. As I speak here, I do miss the session of this house, just not because I don't want to be here, but to go down there and convince my people and bury them. Mr. Speaker, it is really a serious issue which needs to be to get a concern from the government agency.
Give me a minute to wind up. 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, we also have a right to our own property, of which people from my constituency, they don't want, some of them, their property have been destroyed, some stolen, and now they own anything now, they don't have anything now to own. And the other thing also, Mr. Speaker, we have also the right to alienate anywhere in this country as per the constitution. But now some areas in my constituency, people have been chased away, and they have become displaced. And it's their right to live where they have decided to live. The other issue also, Mr. Speaker, which I want the security team to know, is the operation in the North Rift. We are talking of operation being in the North Rift. But as I speak here, there is nothing like operation in the North Rift. Because if operation is in the North Rift, where are these helicopters we are talking about? Where are the security officers we are talking about? Where are these tankers we are talking about? It is nothing going on in the North Rift in the name of operation. The government needed to address the issue of operation in North Rift so that we can avoid losing lives of these people. In fact, women, they are being killed. It is a shame for men to kill women and children. If in our culture, if a man dies, if you are killed looking after your livestock, we do say you have killed in the line of duty, because that's our duty. We look after our animals, we protect them. So it is our duty. But why to kill women? Why to kill pregnant women? Why to kill small kids? It is a shame to these people who are killing these women, who are just innocent. Mr. Speaker, I had a lot to say, but because of time, I can give my colleagues to contribute over this issue, which is emotional. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The member for Turkana, Honorable Cecilia Ngitit.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise up to add my voice on the adjournment motion tabled by my colleague, Honorable Nicholas Nkor, MP for Turkana East. Mr. Speaker, this is the second time in less than 6 months that we are tabling an adjournment motion talking about insecurity in the north. And in this particular moment, we are talking about Turkana East. Honorable Speaker, so much is happening in Turkana, and I don't know why is the government paying a deaf ear and a blind eye to our cry. Honorable Speaker, many people have been killed in Turkana due to banditry. If you look at today's issue raised by Honorable Nicholas Nkolong, 4 of his members are lying lifelessly just on their soil in Turkana. Not that they had gone to aggressively attack anyone else, but they have been killed in their own home place. Honorable Speaker, even today as we speak here, one of our roads is not passable, an A1 road, Kitale to Lodwa. Today, a shuttle that was en route Lodwa via Kainuk was attacked. Bullets were just sprayed indiscriminately. 1 person has been killed, and many people are critically injured, Mr. Speaker. And then there is a new one that has started again. Our border riders are never safe today in Turkana. When they are driving in those bushy roads in our rural places, they are just sprayed bullets and their bikes are taken away. And all these atrocities are committed by none other but our neighbors Pokots, Bwana Speaker. I don't know what is happening. There is an operation going on in Turkana and Pokot, but attacks are so rampant than before. The security agencies down there are in bed with bandits. We are even told bandits charge their phones in their security homes as they carry their guns along with them. Honorable Speaker, even our game park, our game reserve is now a grazing land by our neighbors, and our wild animals are not safe. They are being killed for their sources or something. So, Honorable Speaker, it is so sad in Turkana. As the Honorable Nkolong puts it, our children have not gone to school.
Member for Inapkoi, what's out of order?
Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 83. Mr. Speaker, the matters that the members of Parliament from Turkana are raising are extremely important, very serious, and it warrants the Cabinet Secretary in charge of security to appear before this House to respond to these issues. Would I be in order, Mr. Speaker, to ask my very good friend, the Honorable Nkikoro, if you can direct him to seek answers from the Cabinet Secretary? Because listening to them, Mr. Speaker, we will all ventilate on this motion in a very animated manner and with a lot of compassion. But unfortunately, we will not be able to resolve anything. Would I be in order, Mr. Speaker, that you direct the Honorable Nkikoro to bring in a question to order the Speaker, to order the Cabinet Secretary to stand here and respond to the issues that the members have raised that are extremely very serious and of serious concern to the members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, Article 95 of the Constitution provides that members of Parliament resolve matters that are of concern to the people. This is one of the matters which the Cabinet Secretary for Security should appear here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Chepkonga, the point is well taken, but the member also availed himself to another standing order of the House. He doesn't extinguish his right to bring a question. Yeah, he also has the right, using a standing orders, to bring a motion of adjournment, which he has done. Honorable Nkikoro is listening to you. That option is available to him in the future. For now, we'll go on with the debate on the motion as moved. Honorable Cecilia, proceed. There you are.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On the same note, Honorable Speaker, our Constitution provides that every Kenyan has a right for security, a right for his or her property to be protected, Honorable Speaker. But the Turkana person is not assured of the security. Neither is the property owned down there in terms of livestock is assured or secure as per the law, Honorable Speaker. So I normally sit down and just cry that, do we belong to this country? Do the Turkana people belong to this country, Honorable Speaker? Do we have to lose, how many people do we have to lose? Especially to our neighbors, our fellow Kenyans, by the name of Pokots, for the government to come to our rescue, Honorable Speaker. How many women must die for this government to hear our cry? How many children must die for this government to hear our cry, Honorable Speaker? It is high time I'm crying to you, Honorable Kindiki. It is high time you come down there, just find out what is the problem with our neighbors. I have talked many things in this house, and I've even come up to know that it is about land. These people want to kill our people so that they are scared out of their land, and then they occupy this land. But we are telling you, until the last Turkana breathes on this earth, we will not lose even an inch of our land to you. However many people you will kill all of us, not an inch of our land will go away. We have protected our land even from the external aggression. When I speak, Turkana people are being killed by Ethiopians. Turkana people are killed by Sudanese. Turkana people are killed by Ugandans. And here we are killed by Kenyans. Who are we? Who are we, Bwana Speaker? Are we children of a lesser God? So, Bwana Speaker, please, I don't know if we are getting solutions in this house. If we can have an adjournment motion of the same topic in less than 6 months and nothing has happened. I brought an adjournment motion here 3 months ago. Nothing has happened as we speak. Instead, bandits do charging of their phones in those camps where the military are doing the operations from. Instead, the commanders of the military are in bed with leaders of another community, and then most of us, we don't even know who they are. Bwana Speaker, it is so sad. It is so sad. Now, I'm appealing to the leaders from our neighbors. Please talk to your people. Pursue the Turkana people until when you are satisfied. But please, spare the innocent travelers. Spare the innocent travelers who are just traveling. Mr. Speaker, the last weekend, we buried a ward administrator who was shot dead on our way. The other month, we buried a university student who was ferrying a sick mother to Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. She was killed, and the mother was suffering from cancer. And I want to thank my governor. He paid for the medical bill for that mother to be flown to India recently. Bwana Speaker, things that are happening down in Turkana will not make you to be a proud leader. I am not a proud leader of the Turkana people today, because the people I represent are dying every minute. Not because of sickness, but because of insecurity. Honorable Speaker, I think I have no enough words. I have no enough words in this house to just describe the same thing. I just want to rest it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, I recognize the presence of polling schools in the Speaker's Gallery. Lona Laboso Secondary School from Sotik in Bomet County. Genesis Secondary School from Kapenguria, West Pokot. We welcome the students from these schools to follow the proceedings of the House this evening. The next speaker would be the Honorable Paul. Order, the Honorable Anjala. You just walked in. The Honorable Paul Biego of Chesumei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to add in a bit of weight to what is being discussed in the adjournment motion about our great people from Turkana County. As I sit here and hear the members of parliament actually articulating their points so emotionally, I also feel a bit embarrassed that the things that are being discussed each and every time, and there is no solution. And actually, as the senior member also stood on a point of order and was requesting that the CS be here or be summoned, I think I strongly support that, because if the member of parliament from Turkana has raised the same issue 3 months ago and nothing has happened, then there is a big problem, Mr. Speaker. I feel the plight of the Turkana people. And that is why I congratulate the Member of Parliament from Turkana East, Mr. or Honorable Nicholas, for having actually brought this. This should actually be declared as a national disaster. And if people actually